Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Genuinely Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi, and welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast. I hope you've had a good week, and I did a couple of radio shows. That was really good fun. Of course, and I did my webinar on Explore a Career as a Sober Coach. If you missed that and you are interested, drop me a message and we'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. There are lots of people who are actually interested in doing the training to sort of support their own sobriety, as it were. So, and their own transformation, their own well-being. So definitely get in touch if it's something that might be of interest for you, if it's the right time for you. I thought this week we would actually just go back in time. I mean, loads of people take the summer off, don't they? I don't take the summer off, as I'm sure you've noticed. I've been doing this podcast every single week for goodness knows how many years. But I thought rather than reinvent the wheel, I would play a bit of an old a podcast I recorded just over a year ago, actually. And the reason I've been thinking about this is because it is the lovely Clare Pooley. And I've got a couple of clients that I'm working with at the moment, and I always recommend Clare Pooley's book, The Sober Diaries. Of course I do. It was the one that changed everything for me. And a couple of clients are sort of just reading that book for the first time now and just absolutely loving it. So I thought, let's give that podcast a rerun, not least because it's the live podcast that we did live from Club Soda. And I want to try to encourage you to come to our next live event, which, as you know, is in honour of the Sober Club's sixth birthday. I can't believe it's 6 years. I'm finding it really hard to get my head around that. I do spend a lot of my time on it, but wow, 6 years. So that is on Monday, the 8th of September. It's at Club Soda. You do have to grab tickets. It's a well-being event. I wanted to focus on well-being because over all the years I've been running the Sober Club, I've been sort of slowly integrating all the stuff that I do. As I'm sure you know, before doing this work, I was already, working in holistic living. It's just that I was stepping around the elephant in the room that was alcohol, but I was doing all the other pieces, all the pieces around good nutrition and good mindset and avoiding chemicals and reducing your toxic load and all of those things. So I figured it was time to kind of bring those back in. And I've been slowly introducing bits and bobs into our Sober Club group. And on this particular event on Monday the 8th, I thought that's what we do. We would really have a focus on well-being. I'll share some stuff. I'm going to have Amanda Thompson is going to come along, by the way, from Naughty. Always great to meet Amanda. And Sarah Holland, who is an EFT expert. As you know, one of the things I'm trained in is EFT and matrix reimprinting. And Sarah's going to share some tapping stuff with us. And there'll be some wellbeing tips. There'll be some of my coaches are going to pop up. And it will be, I hope, a really great focus for you. If you're brand new to sobriety and you're just sober curious, then you're going to love it because you're just going to get so many tips to kind of get started and throw yourself in at the deep end with just feeling fantastic without the booze. And if you've been sober for a while, I promise you will still get some great insights into how you can level up even more to be living your best life without the booze. We've also got really cool goodie bags, so that's worth it. You'll pretty much get the ticket price with the fabulous goodie bags. So I really hope you'll be able to join us. It's Monday, the 8th of September. Live from Club Soda. We'll record it as a live podcast, but you can't beat being in the room, meeting like-minded people. I know it's a long way for some. I know it's a school night and all, but do come if you can. If you want to come on your own, please don't be nervous about that. Just drop me a message. I'll make sure we meet you. I promise you'll feel okay. I promise you. It's a small venue. It's really nice. Also, of course, you get a discount on the drinks to purchase, to take home. And of course, there's an alcohol-free bar. I mean, what's not to like in the centre of London? So that's Monday, the 8th of September. If you go to thesoberclub.com/events, you'll find the link there for the Club Soda event, or I'll put it in the show notes as well, of course. So here's another chance to hear the live podcast with the wonderful Clare Pooley. This is from just over a year ago. So welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast live. Yay! Well, it's not live, but you know what I mean. Recorded and will be out. And I just cannot think of a better, amazing guest than Clare Pooley.
Oh,
thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I mean, having a chat with you, Janie, is always such a pleasure. So thank you.
So lovely of you. And we will be talking about Clare's new book, which is here, How to Age Disgracefully. And she has, in fact, dressed as the cover, which is really rather perfect. And obviously, clearly, I'm out, living the title, obviously. So I feel this book was written just for me. It's just the most fantastic novel. I love all of Clare's books. And we are going to go right back to the beginning. I hope that's all right. Mm-hmm. Most of you probably know, if you've listened to the podcast or you've read my book, that it's all because of Clare that I'm here. So I owe a huge debt to you, sweetheart, I really do. So most of you know a very potted history was that I was drinking, way too much for way too many years, queen of holistic living, but stepping around this huge elephant in the room that was booze, and just kind of thought, well, that's what everyone does. But something was not right, clearly, and I was waking up at 3 a.m., liver repair time, and a little voice was saying, what are you actually doing? This is not okay. And so I realised something had to change, but I had no idea what, because everyone around me seemed to be drinking exactly the same amount as I was, and they weren't doing anything different, and so it seemed as though there was nowhere for me to go, no one for me to tell, nothing for me to do. I did ask a GP once. I went for a vitamin D test, and on the way out I said, she was really nice, and I said on the way out, can I ask you one other thing? They call it the doorknob moment, don't they? Actually, they don't have time for it now, I'm told, but in the old days they used to call it the doorknob moment, when the real problem comes out. So doorknob, actually there is something else. Can I just ask you about something else, because I'm just a bit worried about my drinking, actually. Oh, well, you look completely fine. How much are you drinking? Well, obviously I lied. Well, everyone lies, and they know you lie. You say, well, seems fine. I mean, sounds about like me, really. Just have an alcohol-free day, yeah? Like I had not thought of that. So, literally, that kept me stuck for another few years, because she thought it was fine. I was doing the same. And I had nowhere to go with this concern and worry. It just, I didn't fit into any kind of picture where I was, an addict. Nobody else knew there was a problem. It was just the waking up every day and knowing something had to change. And then it was literally just before Christmas. It was end of 2017, just before Christmas, and I was working on Radio 2. And the producer handed me a book, and he said, you've got all over Christmas to read this one. Normally you get one evening if you're interviewing an author. But they said, you've got a book, you've got a couple of weeks to read this one. The author's coming in straight after Christmas. I looked at the title, and I knew in that moment she was coming for me. So obviously I didn't read it, well, at least not till after Christmas, I had to get Christmas in. And I started reading the book on the 29th, I think, of December, and that was it. Never had another drink. And but here's the interesting bit. For the first few weeks, Clare came in. It was fantastic to meet Clare. And I thought, well, I'm definitely going to stop drinking now because she's so lovely and I can do January and all. But such was the shame and guilt that I felt, I didn't tell anybody other than Clare. Remember I used to send you those emails?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, what the fuck's going on? I've got leg cramps. Oh, sweetheart, it's quite normal. And then do you remember the email that was like, actually, I was feeling really good, but now I'm feeling really terrible. Oh, sweetheart, you've hit the wall. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Because I hadn't told anyone else. There was no one to tell. But because Clare's book was just so unbelievably relatable, that was what did it for me, and it opened up that world. So that's my little story, and I'm incredibly grateful to you for writing that book, and so many other people are too. But for anyone who hasn't read it yet, just give us the very brief intro to how all of that started for you, because that was how you got started into writing.
Yeah.
And look at where you are now.
Thank you. Well, yes, potted history. So I'll take you back to 2015, and if you've read the Sober Diaries, you'll remember this story. And, it's amazing how many people say to me when they've read the book, they say, this is me, you have written my story, and there is nothing unique about my story. And actually, that's why I'm so pleased I published it, because it isn't unique. It's the story of all of us, and, so many hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And, I didn't know that. When I first quit drinking, I felt really alone. I thought I was the only person that drank the way that I did and lived the sort of life that I did. And I was really ashamed and lonely, and I'm just so glad that people don't have to feel that anymore. So taking you back there, 2015, it will all be horribly familiar to you. My drinking had just crept up gradually over the years. I was talking to somebody earlier about, what it was like back then, and it was, when I first started drinking lots in the 90s, it was all Bridget Jones, it was Sex and the City, it was Absolutely Fabulous, it was the Ladettes. I thought that everyone was drinking the way that I was drinking. I thought it was perfectly okay to be drinking at home alone like Bridget Jones. It was perfectly okay to drink as much as the guys, because that was sort of what emancipated women did. And it didn't feel like it was a problem. I thought everyone was doing the same. But gradually, as you know, it sort of starts creeping up and up and up, and your tolerance builds to the point where, it wasn't that I was obviously drunk all the time. I was very rarely obviously drunk, but I could drink a whole bottle of wine without it touching the sides. So, it would take a bottle of wine just to make me feel relaxed. And that was really a bad place to be. So by 2015, I was drinking a bottle of wine every day. And if it was the weekend and I was going out, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine. And it added up to about 10 bottles of wine a week, which is, as you know, way more than the government guidelines. And then the day I quit, it was the first page of the Sober Diaries. So I woke up with a hangover the day after my birthday party. And my kids were making a real racket in the kitchen, and I knew that the only thing that would make me feel better was hair of the dog. But it was 11:30 in the morning, and I set myself really strict rules because I didn't want to think that I was an alcoholic. And one of the strict rules was you must never ever drink in the morning, because you remember all those all those questionnaires
to wait till the sun's over the yard.
Do you drink in the morning? It's like, no, I don't.
That's all right then.
That's okay. Do you drink alone? No, I only drink with the dog. So anyway, I knew I couldn't drink because it was before midday, and that was my hard and fast rule. But I found about an inch of red wine in a bottle, which felt like a sign, because who leaves an inch of red wine in a bottle, crazy. And I poured it into a mug, because I thought my kids wouldn't see that I was drinking. And I think a lot of you know where this is going, because I drank the red wine, I felt a lot better, and then I looked at the mug and it said on it, "The world's best mum." And that was the last drink I ever had, because I felt so ashamed at that moment, and it was just the last straw. It wasn't one of those dramatic falling over in the gutter and sort of being carted off to A&E moments. It was just the last sign that I needed. And that was nearly 10 years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah, long time.
Amazing. So, and that was, I think, one of the things that was so unbelievably relatable about the book, the way that you spoke about, just that, the parenting, the early years, how, those of us who are parents will know. I mean, that's where the shame comes in. I look back and think, oh my God, I'll never get those years back. I know you talk in the book about rushing to get through the bedtime story so you can get that. I mean, what were we thinking of, right? What were we thinking of? But you made the book completely relatable, and obviously the book was simply you writing your blog, and in fact at that point you didn't even know, did you, whether it was going to, you weren't really writing it for publication.
No, I didn't want anyone
didn't want anyone to read it.
I didn't want anyone to read it. I was far too ashamed. So actually, I called it Mummy Was a Secret Drinker, and I gave myself a pseudonym which was Sober Mummy, because I really didn't want anyone to know it was me. And I wasn't, I didn't publicise it in any way, shape or form because, I thought if I do that, then people would find out it was me behind it. So it was quite amazing the way it took off anyway. And really I wrote just as therapy. So it was just a way for me to understand what was going on in my head. And the funny thing about that book is that if I tried to write it with the benefit of hindsight, so if I'd written it like 2 years after I quit, it wouldn't be the same book at all. It was because you know what it's like. You look back at the times when you first quit drinking, you can't remember exactly what it felt like, or what your thoughts were, or what you were afraid of, all those things. You only know when you're in it. So I think the reason why people associate with it is because it was written in real time.
Real. Well, one of the bits I absolutely loved in that book, I'm sure I've shared this before, but I think that was the moment which I thought, oh, she really gets it, was when you talk about the nightmare of driving to Cornwall with the kids in the car on your own. And you talk about this drive with anyone who's a parent or anyone who's driven to Cornwall, Karen, will know, what the hell even is this road, right, in traffic? And you talk about this horrible journey from hell, and then you arrive really late at night and you've got the kids to deal with, you've got property to get into or whatever, and you just want a drink. And we've all been there. And and then you talk about how you were so desperate, but you found an alcohol-free beer, but you hadn't got a
I couldn't find a bottle opener.
So you went and smashed it against a tree. I thought, that's my girl. Because you just need something to hit the spot, right?
Yeah, I was like, what kind of holiday home doesn't have a bottle opener?
But those little moments are so relatable because the fact is we've had so much of our lives sewn up with these associations around alcohol.
I'll tell you one moment with a blog when people started finding this blog, and it got to the point where I think people would just type into Google, "Am I an alcoholic?" and my blog would pop up. So people all around the world started reading it, and I remember I was talking at one point about I was reminiscing about the drinking days, and I said, one of the great things about not drinking is I don't have this paranoia about cashiers anymore. And I wrote about how I used to have this thing where I couldn't go to the same shop more than once or twice in a week in case they started judging the amount of wine I was buying. And I used to do these silly things where I'd talk really loudly and say, so Godfather Duncan's coming round for dinner, so must get extra wine, kids, and all that sort. And anyway, I'm sure the cashiers thought I was crazy. So I wrote this in the blog, and I have people all over the world, again, completely different people, different sexes, different nationalities, different ages, and all of them said, yeah, I used to have the same fear of cashiers, and I used to sort of, rotate the shops I went to. And then this woman said, I am a cashier, and I do judge you.
Well, fortunately, now there are self-service tills everywhere. Yeah. In fact, they put you in a pen, don't they, to do it yourself. So anyway, the book was a huge success, and it got picked up, of course. And there must have been a moment when you kind of thought, oh my God, I'm actually going to now reveal all of the the skeletons in my cupboard. And Claire and I were just talking about this because I've written a memoir which comes out in October, and I was just saying to Claire that I'm just at the moment, as it's kind of gone off for publication, I'm just going through this phase of thinking, what the hell have I done? What have I actually done? And you reminded me that the next thing that will happen is the dream. Tell us about the dream.
Yeah, so about a week before the Sober Diaries was published, I sort of got there was a big whirlwind of activity leading up to publication, to the point that sort of I didn't really think about it too much. And then about a week beforehand, and it was around Christmas because it was coming out just before New Year's Eve in time for everyone quitting drinking for January. And it suddenly struck me that I was about to tell the whole world all my sort of darkest secrets. And of course I should have thought about this before.
Me too.
my publicist had lined up, Woman's Hour and Steve Wright, which is where I met Janie. And I was going to be serialised in the Daily Mail of all places. And, all of this was sort of, going to happen. And I suddenly thought, I'm not sure if I can do this. Is it too late to pull out? So I called my agent and I said, is it too late to pull out? She goes, yes, of course it's too late to pull out. And I had this recurring nightmare, and it was about 5 nights in a row where I dreamt that I was walking down a really busy shopping street like Oxford Street, and everyone had clothes on apart from me, and I was totally naked. Because that's how it feels,
Great.
doesn't
Thank
it?
you. I don't know yet. Thank you.
I'm afraid that's how it feels, Janie. It feels like you're going to walk down a busy street naked because you're telling all your worst secrets is like taking off all your clothes. However, on the happy side, I have to tell you that it's one of the most liberating things you can do, because if you tell everybody the worst things about your life, then nobody has anything they can throw at you.
That's true.
It sort of makes you a superhero, because you're like, people might say, oh, you were such a drunk. And you go, well, yeah.
Absolutely.
And they go, you were a terrible mother. It's like, I talk about that in I've said that too, and they say you were, there's nothing that people can throw at you that you haven't already thrown at yourself. And you also find that when you make yourself properly vulnerable and you're properly authentic, people are really kind. When people are nasty, it tends to be when they think you are pretending to be something you're not, and they think you need taking down a peg or two or whatever it is. But when you are really honest about the worst parts of your life, people are normally really lovely. And, with the exception of a few people in the Mail online, I had very little trolling. Actually, I'll tell you my favourite troll was when, which my husband thought was hilarious, is somebody in the Mail online who said, if I was her husband, I'd be drinking a bottle of wine a day.
Charming.
Oh, and there was a Glaswegian, there's my favourite Glaswegian, who said, a bottle of wine a day in Glasgow, we call that breakfast.
I remember you saying at the book launch for this that you'd read some reviews, and it's just fantastic, isn't it, when you just actually go down the rabbit hole of just the terrible reviews that you can get. But anyway, so that's a very long-winded way of saying as well that actually writing stuff down can be very cathartic, but you don't have to publish it, right? But it's something that we talk about in the Sober Club a lot, is that the power of actually just writing down what's going on for you, even if you just write down, at the end of the day, okay, what have been the blessings that you found? And in a way, that's what you were doing to start with. You were just documenting it, right?
Yeah, it is great therapy, and it's a great way of not just understanding what's going on in your head, but also it's a great reminder of where you've been.
Yeah.
So if you write it all down, you can then go back and look at where you were and realise how far you've come, because I don't know if this has happened to any of you, I'm sure it has, that moment where you've quit drinking for about 3 to 6 months and suddenly things start getting easier, and then you forget how bad it was and you think, I was never that bad.
Fading effect bias.
Yeah, I was never that bad. You sort of think, well, maybe I've overdone it a bit, sort of thinking I need to quit altogether. Maybe I can just have one, I can be a sensible drinker now. I've learned my lesson. And if you've written it down, you can go back and remind yourself why that doesn't work. And that's really helpful. So, writing it down is good. Yeah,
definitely. The fading effect bias that comes in. In fact, this time last year, we had William Porter here as well.
Yeah.
And we were talking about exactly that, the fab. It's not, in fact, fab at all. Obviously for you, it did transpire that you are in fact a sensational writer, and then you morphed into novels, and your first novel, The Authenticity Project, oh my God, I think I've read it 4 times.
Oh, thank you.
I absolutely loved that book. I love them all. But that one, I had no idea what you were going to come out with. You probably didn't know either. And just tell us a little, for anyone who hasn't read The Authenticity Project, tell us a little about the premise, and you have to tell us about your fabulous, funky alcoholic in it.
So The Authenticity Project is probably the most autobiographical of my novels. And they say, write what you know. so, I published the Sober Diaries, and I realised that my new addiction was writing. And, so many people say, don't they, that, when you quit drinking, it leaves a big hole. And, you sort of need to find something to fill that hole with. And often the thing that you turn to is something you loved when you were a child. And so often people say, I started riding again and I hadn't ridden a horse since I was a teenager, or I started sport again, or running or swimming or whatever it is. And for me, writing and reading and writing were my big joys when I was a child. And, it's no surprise that that's what I chose to fill that hole with. But I sort of felt like I'd done writing about my own life, and my kids are done with me writing about their lives. If any of you have got teenagers, that sort of, they get to the point where they're like, no, boundaries. So I thought, I want to carry on writing, so I'll turn to fiction. But the Authenticity Project was spookily based on my own experience, because if you think about it, what I'd done with the Sober Diaries is to tell the real truth about my life rather than what people saw on social media and the sort of relatively well pulled together mother they saw at the school gates. I wrote about what was really going on in my life, and I shared that with a bunch of strangers, and doing that transformed my life in all sorts of amazing ways. And that is effectively what happens in the Authenticity Project. It's the story about 6 people who tell the real truth about their lives in a little green notebook, and that notebook is passed between them, and they end up meeting each other and changing each other's lives in extraordinary ways. So it is fiction, absolutely, but it is kind of, and I'm not sure I realised how closely it was tied to my own experience until after I finished writing it. and also, after I finished writing it, I realised that a number of the characters share things with me as well. So the one that Janie alluded to, Hazard,
fantastic name.
my romantic hero, who is an alcohol and cocaine addict, and we see him getting sober, and his journey to sobriety is the same as all of ours. In fact, there was at my book launch, I was talking about a great review I read on the Sober Diaries. It wasn't Sober Diaries, a review of the Authenticity Project, where somebody had written, Clare Pooley has obviously never met an alcoholic. Or a cokehead, lol. And I thought, this person has obviously never read my bio. Because Hazard's experience of getting sober is absolutely accurate. So that was my first novel, which actually, it was the sort of whole experience was a real roller coaster, because it was, that book sort of ended up going to auction. It had 6 publishers bidding for it. It was hugely exciting. It was then translated into 30 different languages. And I sold the film rights. I mean, it was really exciting. And then, just 2 weeks before it was due to be published, we went into lockdown, and all the shops closed, and all of the events were cancelled. And everything was sort of, and I thought, this is it. Nobody is ever going to read my book. So it's amazing that it found an audience despite all of that. You know. So I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, people still talk about it all the time. And then, of course, the next novel after that, The People on Platform 5. Well, it's got another title in different languages.
In America,
yeah. Was another fabulous one. Tell us a bit about that.
So the second book, I came up with the idea during lockdown, actually, when I realised that, obviously I miss sort of the friends and family I couldn't see, but I also really bizarrely miss being surrounded by whole groups of strangers. And I started sort of reminiscing about those tube journeys I used to do to work, when you end up with your nose in somebody else's armpit for an hour. And I sort of thought, oh God, imagine having all these people right next to you with no masks. Wasn't that lovely? And I started remembering the fact that I saw the same people over and over again, but I never spoke to them, because the first rule of commuting in London is you never ever speak to strangers on public transport. And I thought, what would have happened if I had talked to them? What adventures might that have taken me on? And that was the idea really for the people on Platform 5, which is about a group of random strangers, all completely different, who share nothing apart from the same commute. And right at the beginning of the book, one of them chokes on a grape and nearly dies, and his life is saved by another one of the characters who gives him the Heimlich maneuver. And that sort of gets this group of people talking. And again, looking, I didn't realise this at the time, but I think the reason all of my novels are based on community and on what happens when strangers come together is, look at you guys. This is, they say that the opposite of addiction is connection. And, finding those connections between groups of people, groups of strangers is a really, really powerful magic. And all of my books are really about that powerful magic in different ways.
Yeah, they really are. And you have a way of making your characters so unbelievably realistic that it's hard to imagine. I mean, I don't know how you do that, because we think that they really are real. So, and when you get to the end of the book, that's why I had to read The Authenticity Project 4 times. I can't bear it to end. I just can't bear it to end. What will I do? And I don't know anything about that character. But didn't you say that someone got worried about the dog?
Yeah. So there's a dog in The Authenticity Project called Keith. And without giving away any spoilers, at the end of the book, Keith is left in a somewhat precarious position. And I have had literally hundreds of messages from people around the world saying they have to know what happened to Keith.
Offering to take him in.
I had people saying that they have been unable to sleep because they are so worried about Keith. And part of me wanted to say, look, he's not real. He's an imaginary dog. But I'm so thrilled that people found him so believable. So I didn't, I replied to every single one of them, telling them exactly what happened to Keith, and that he was absolutely fine, was adopted by Monica and Hazard, lived in the cafe until he died very peacefully of old age. But I got slightly tired of having to answer this So I said to both my publishers in the UK and the US, please, could you, when you do the next reprint, can you add a sort of addendum to the author's note
in case you're worried about the dog.
To Keith? So if you have a recent edition of the Authenticity Project, you look at the author's note, it says, please don't worry about Keith because...
Would you like to become an accredited sober coach? Have you quit drinking and found yourself looking for a new purpose? Thousands of people are searching for help to quit and live their best life without the booze. Our Sober Coach training gives you the tools, the confidence and the community to support others. No experience needed, except knowing what it feels like to have drunk more than you wanted to. We start with 2 transformational in-person days. Then you join our coaches family with ongoing support and webinars to help you use your skills in ways that suit you. If you're already a coach or a therapist, this could be an in-demand extra string to your bow, or a whole new career opportunity as a Sober Club accredited coach. For more info, visit thesoberclub.com and click on the Become a Sober Coach menu item.
And similarly with this new book, then again, you've got characters in there that are just so unbelievably warm, and you just feel like you know them. You really, really do. So again, for anyone who hasn't read it yet, and it was only just out, right?
Yeah, 10 days ago.
Amazing. So we're so lucky having Claire here because she's busy, like can't believe. But tell us about the premise of this one, and for me, this one really comes across as being, where you were just talking about that community thing and the power of connection, and that so shines through in this book.
Oh, thank you. So yes, this one is called the How to Age Disgracefully. As Jamie pointed out, I am dressed like the cover. So for anyone who's listening to the podcast version of this, it's pink and red. Really the inspiration came from getting older. I'm now, when I wrote the Sober Diaries, I was 46. When I first quit drinking, I was 46. I'm now 55. And I know I look a lot younger. I'm kidding. I look every day at 55. So I'm 55, and I realise that I am nearer to 60 than I am to 50, which is, it's quite a wake-up call. But, I feel just the same as I did when I was 25. And I'm pretty sure that when I get to 75, I'm still going to feel just the same. I got fed up with seeing older people on TV and in films and in books who were real stereotypes, and often they're usually the bit parts, very rarely the sort of main characters, and they're usually saved by the kindness of a younger person, and I thought, well, bugger that. I want to write a book that has older characters who are really bossing it, and who are teaching the younger generation how to go about living life. And at the same time, I started getting interested in these stories about centres in places like the Netherlands, where they combine senior care with nurseries. And I thought, now that could be a lot of fun. And at the same time, I heard all these stories about the Covent Garden robberies. I don't know if you remember that, where there was this jewellery heist that was sort of undertaken by a group of people who were almost entirely over the age of 70. And all of those things sort of came together in this novel, How to Age Disgracefully, which is about a group. It's about a community centre in Hammersmith. On one side, there's a senior citizen social club, and on the other side, there's a council-run nursery. And the two sides sort of join together to save the community centre when it's under threat from developers. And the senior citizens are way more badly behaved than the toddlers, and they all have very mysterious and somewhat dubious pasts that sort of gradually come to light. And I had huge amounts of fun writing it, actually.
I can imagine you did, and I love the fact that you address inverted commas aging, because certainly within those of us who've ditched the booze realise that it's the best anti-aging hack ever, right? Isn't it? Does anyone else find that? I mean, seriously, I'm only 12, but seriously, I mean that was one of the things that for me before I stopped drinking was such a massive thing. I was so afraid of getting old. Obviously, in the industry I'm in, where you can't look old, but I didn't know what I was going to do, because as things all start to go south, I didn't want to get involved in surgery and stuff, because I like the natural approach to everything. So I remember just feeling horrified at how much I hated the way I looked and everything that was happening to me. But what could I do? And I remember in my mind thinking, maybe I could do a boot camp, and I could do a vegan diet for a year, or do this. I thought of everything apart from stopping quitting drinking, of course. Because what was really going on, of course, was a complete lack of self-esteem. That's what was really going on. And then when I stopped drinking, I mean, one of the just glorious benefits is that either it genuinely does make you look better, or if not, you don't give a toss. Right? So, because actually you like yourself. So I don't actually know if I look younger, but I don't care, right? I don't care. Whereas before I cared really deeply, because I didn't really like myself very much. The worse, you know what I mean? It's just incredible.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
So it's such an amazing anti-aging hack, really. And actually, in truth, scientifically, it genuinely is. I did that fantastic podcast with the leading clinical researcher who talks about telomeres, the markers of aging. And literally, one glass of wine is aging, literally. And she talks about it all scientifically. So you're definitely on the right track, sweetheart, with all of that. Where was I going with that? I've forgotten. But anyway, I also love the fact that, as you say, in this book, you've got these incredibly vibrant characters. And there's just this whole thing of, just because you're getting older, doesn't mean you have to, sit with your feet up and your pipe and slippers, right? And I really love that. And I think that's also one of the really exciting things about stopping drinking. People talk about second wind, sober club members have gone on to do so many incredible things. The amount of people that have said to me, I never thought I'd go on and do a MA in creative writing, or, there was the woman who saved enough money to go to buy a camper van and travel around the world. It's amazing. I know that that's part of what you want to do with this book, is kind of remind everyone that just because you're getting older, doesn't mean that all kinds of amazing stuff can't happen.
Yeah. No, exactly, and I have the scene right at the beginning where the Lydia, who has the job of being the coordinator of this club, and she's the same age as me, and her daughters have just left home. She thinks her husband's having an affair. She hasn't had a paid job for years, and her self-esteem is like on the floor. And she thinks that these senior citizens are just going to want to play bingo and do jigsaw puzzles. And she's like, so does anyone have any ideas of what we might do? And they sort of say, synchronised swimming, or skydiving, or speed dating. And it turns out they're not at all what she was expecting. But I had a great deal of fun with it. So the opening scene was, when I first came up with the idea, I had this scene in my head, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if you had a bunch of geriatrics and toddlers on one of those buses that takes people off on day trips, and imagine if they were pulled over by a policeman and one of them who's looking for some, who's after somebody for questioning, and all of them think that the policeman is after them because all of them have done something terrible. And I made that the first scene in the book, and then I spend the rest of the book so getting back to that point. So we find out what they've all done that makes them think that they're the one being arrested, and you find out who it was that really was the one that the police are after. So yeah, so it's I love playing with those stereotypes, and people sort of the normal septuagenarian in literature is sort of very harmless and helpless, and my characters are not harmless or helpless.
Brilliant. So I guess to bring it all full circle then, I mean, do you think that if you hadn't have ditched the booze, do you think you'd be doing any of this?
Absolutely not, no. No, all of, the whole of this last 10 years has been transformed because of not drinking. So, I mean, when I was a teenager, if you'd said to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have said, I would love to write novels. That would be my absolute dream. So it wasn't something that I hadn't thought about, but I just didn't have the self-esteem to do it. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the time, because alcohol sucks up a huge amount of time. When I wasn't working, I was drinking, or hungover. And I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the creativity, I really, I couldn't have done it. So it's amazing. I think you all have found this, it is amazing what you can achieve when you take the alcohol out of the mix. Absolutely.
I think you were the first person who said, actually being sober actually makes you brave.
Yeah, it does, because you sort of think, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. It is a bit like a superpower, really. It's amazing that I've also discovered that the stuff you go through when you put out your hand if you only quit drinking recently, like within the last 6 months or something.
Amazing.
Well done for start with, yay. But it's really hard initially, isn't it? And what what I'd love you to think about is the fact that all the skills that you're learning now, or everything that you're learning about how to not drink, all those things will become useful for the rest of your life. So, for instance, right now, I'll say this without getting emotional, right now my mum is going through chemotherapy. She's got pancreatic cancer, and it's not good. But all the things I learned when I was getting sober, I use now. So all those things about taking it one day at a time, not looking too far ahead, just getting through the next day, really helpful. All those things in your toolbox that you use to not think about drinking. So the sort of, I've learned that a hot bath really helps, or I've learned going out for a walk and listening to an audiobook really helps. All those things you put in that toolbox, the same things you use whenever anything bad happens in your life. So don't think about it as wasted time or as effort that, is not going to lead to anything other than not drinking. Those skills are really, really helpful life skills. So, and I hope you won't need to use them for anything else, but the truth is that, life is, life throws us lemons, and we're all going to have to deal with stuff other than being sober. And, if I was still drinking now, I would be drinking a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly it. We have to, that expression, feel all the feels, don't we? And whereas we've not been used to doing that, we're probably, for most of us, we don't have a lot of emotional intelligence, because if we started drinking when we were, in our teens, all of the really important stuff has all been under the haze of drinking. And so we're not used to dealing with difficult things. The answer to it is just drink. So, you're right, we have to face it. But the lovely thing is, it helps us to be much more resilient and much more present. And, I think it's really wonderful that you can be, fully present and able to, to support your mum with everything she's going through.
And, if you think about it, it's, if you've got young kids as well, you don't want to be the mother who gets the phone call saying, can you come to the hospital now? And you can't because you've had too much to drink. You don't want to be the person that is constantly crying in front of your children because you've had a few drinks and you're not together enough to be able to keep it together. So. Yeah, actually, not drinking makes you so much better at dealing with all of those sorts of things. It really does. It really does.
Brilliant. Well, Claire, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your tales with us, and I wish you every success. It's going to be huge, like all of them are. Super excited to see all the marvellous stuff that happens. And I guess you're now working on the next one. Can you tell us anything about that?
Oh gosh, well the next one is at that very scary stage where I've written about 20% of it, and I've sent it to my editors and said, let me know what you think before I write any more, and I'm waiting to hear what they think. So I don't really want to share anything in case I jinx it. But I do have to say, firstly, thank you so much to those of you in the front row here, because I did one of these talks about 6 months ago, and it was a really lovely crowd and it was great, but there was one woman in the front row who fell asleep. And I was trying really hard not to take it personally, and she kept then sort of her head would fall onto one side, then she'd wake up and sort of look around in that sort of, has anyone noticed? And I really wanted to say, yes, I have noticed. And then I thought, well, maybe I should say, look, would you mind just moving to the back if you're feeling a bit
have a little kip there.
So anyways, I just want to say thank you for staying awake.
Well, in addition to walking down the street naked, I'm really looking forward to that when I do my talk. Really,
don't take it
Thanks
personally.
a lot. No, I won't. So all that we'll just finish up. Thank you so much for being an amazing audience, and it's just so wonderful to see you all. If you haven't had a chance to meet people, then please do. And all that remains is to say just a massive, massive, massive thank you, Claire. Thank you for all of your incredible writing and all of your inspiration. inspiration and all of your wonderfulness and your friendship to me. And I'm so unbelievably grateful, and thank you for coming.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me, because
I have got a little gift for you, even though you haven't got a phrase.
So thank you.
It's a little cool.
Should I open it now?
No. But anyway, where were we?
Thank you.
It had a ribbon on it. You lost my ribbon.
I love you, Janie, and the community that you've created is so fabulous and warm and lovely, and I could never say no to you. Same
time in a couple of months.
I've been thrilled to be here, and you've all been a fabulous audience, and none of you fell asleep, so thank you.
And it is true, actually, being sober definitely makes people kind, don't you think? Definitely. Wouldn't the world be a nicer place?
Yes.
Everyone was sober. Thank you so much. Just for a big round of applause.
So I hope hearing that has inspired you to come along to the next live podcast Monday, 8th of September. Go to thesoberclub.com/events and you'll find the information there. And it's also be on the show notes, of course. Don't forget to drop me a message if you are interested in the Sober Coach training. And of course, as I say every week, if you're doing this, if it's your if you're just kicking off, then tell someone, always tell someone, please. I mean, of course, I'd love it if you wanted to join us in the Sober Club. It's so supportive. It's non-judgmental. It has everything you need there. I mean, really everything. We have a huge kind of archive of meditations, of stuff around nutrition, of self-care stuff. I mean, everything is in there. Lots of great experts. We've got William Porter does some exclusive expert sessions for us in the Sober Club. It really is all there for an extremely low cost. So please come and join us if that's your thing, thesoberclub.com. If you really do not want to join us, that's fine too. But do reach out and tell someone you're doing this. Please tell someone. You can absolutely tell me. I'll hold the vision for you. You can find me on social media at Janie Lee Grace. Please follow me there and just come and join us or just let someone know. But whatever this next week holds for you, keep that faith, hang on in there. If it's early days for you, just give yourself a really big hug. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.